For the most part, this video stands on its own without the need for additional commentary. At the beginning, I've used some clips from our 22 cents, and if you're out there still, thank you for all the hard work you did at the beginning of Kiely's case. There's some valuable things that you gave us. The whole point of this video is to look at the fact that Kiely's car wasn't found until Adventures with Purpose arrived, and to try and figure out why that was. I'm also putting it out there for those people who are suddenly really trying to push the "it was an accident" narrative, and I'd like to see you answer a few questions that arise as a result of this video. To Megan Cole especially, and her little group of followers, I challenge you to come up with a plausible and credible explanation for the anomalies that we see as a result of this video.
All right, now this is small on my screen. I don't know how y'all are seeing it, but I'm going to try to read it for y'all. It says, "Hi all. As many of you already know, Kiely is missing. Thank you for all reaching out with compassion and support. The search and rescue search in the Prosser area has been stopped." Now this is on the 7th. I was told that over 20 separate units, agencies were involved in the search, along with the CHP's helicopter search and county's friends and strangers who spent the day scouring the area. It appears that she is not there. Nor is she at any of the local hospitals or jails. I know that so many of you want to help and don't know what to do. At this point, the most helpful thing would be to lean on any teens you know in the Truckee, Tahoe, Incline, Reno area who were at the party at Prosser on the night of Friday, August 5th. Ask neighbors, ask parents. And it continues to say, "We are still trying to piece together the night's narrative to figure out when she left and whom she left with. Anyone with this type of information or videos, photos of the party is urged to contact Detective Stephanie Freichberg at 530. I'm staying away from the social media, so best to get a hold of the detective. The police have promised that no one will get in trouble for sharing stories about intoxication. We know where she isn't." That would be at Prosser, right? Because for 24 hours they checked and then canceled it at Prosser. "I'm staying away from social media, so best to get a hold of the detective. The police have promised that no one will get in trouble for sharing stories about intoxication. We know where she isn't, but don't know where she is, nor do we have any good leads. Her friends have planned a meeting at the rec center in Truckee tomorrow at 10 a.m. as well. They plan on distributing flyers near and far. Feel free to show up for the meeting. Of course, any sightings of her car would be helpful too. It's a silver 2013 Honda CR-V. If you have any friends who live off 89 or in the Prosser neighborhood with Ring cameras, take a look for the car after 1:30. Needless to say, it has been a day. We are lucky to have friends in town who have been at our side since the morning and are carrying more than their share of this burden. If I don't respond to your messages, do know that I'm seeing them and appreciate you reaching out. Despite all the love and support, I just don't have it in me to respond."
So the takeaway there, the big statement, we know where she's not. Lindsey believed at this point, so early in the piece, that the thorough search that they'd done of Prosser meant that Kiely was not in the Prosser area. Also, note the fact that she's talking about asking people to check Ring cameras and stuff and look for the car after 1:30 a.m. Not 12:30 a.m., 1:30 a.m. There was that early sighting of 1:30. It said on the map 1:30, and later it changed to 12:30. I think we need to keep that in mind.
This right here is the helicopter search flight paths. I blew this up. That is Prosser Lake. You can see where the helicopter circled Prosser Lake, correct? Just, okay, and I get it. At the time they were doing this flight path, the car was 14 foot underwater. But a car is 5 foot, 5.5 foot tall. So that means that from the top of the water to the very first part of the car would have been 8 or 9 foot deep at that time. And look at this helicopter going across this lake. The next image, okay, is another flight path. I have Prosser marked with the red arrow. They went across it a couple times, but it doesn't look like it was a big concern to them. Okay. Now look at this one. This one is key to me. This is another flight path. Look at the path the helicopter takes. Up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down, right? And then it loops back around, and look what it does. Pretty close to the spot of where Kiely would have been. It just goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's just surprising to me, y'all, that they did not see that car. And I'm just going to leave it there. You make with it what you will, okay?
Bear in mind also, these are only 3 flight paths out of many, many flight paths. Unfortunately, most of the flight paths that were recorded are now no longer available to us. Most of them were Tennessee Yankees work, and I think I mentioned in another video recently, only a really short while before his channel just vanished, he had spent a live stream looking at the many, 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 many times that planes and helicopters had flown over the location where Kiely's car was eventually found.
So you see here in the middle, it says, I noticed 2 people marked by orange and purple that got so close to where she was. Now this pink arrow, if you look on the screen, I put a pink arrow of about her location. And if you look, there's a person in red. They have the names on who done the tracking, right? So it looks like Abarro Sanchez was the red. He went right to the point. Of course, she was out in the water. He wouldn't have found her, right? The yellow was boat traffic. Look where the yellow boat goes, right to where she was, but then turns around and heads the other way. And then you have this purple. The purple is literally all over, right to her vehicle, turns and does a U-turn. It's just odd to me how right here, everybody got close and then backed off, right?
I'd be very interested to know the dates for those purple tracks and the orange tracks, because they certainly do look like they go right up to where Kiely's car was eventually found. What is interesting is that the red track, you can see the date there, it was the 18th of August that red track occurred, which to me says that when they were there standing right on that point, if, as we believe, Kiely's car was in the reservoir by the 18th, they were so close to Kiely's car on that date.
This case has had over 10,000 man-hours over the last 2 weeks placed in at Prosser. I'm confident in what has been done at Prosser. It doesn't mean I'm not going to check it, it just means that I'm not going to start there. We're going to make the most of our time by starting where we know not that much work was put into.
So Doug is telling us here that half the man-hours that have been put in were put in at Prosser. For him to say that he's confident in the search that's been done at Prosser already is significant. Adventures with Purpose, if you've watched any of their earlier videos, have done recoveries in places that had been previously checked and cleared. They do have their motto of, if I haven't checked it, it's not cleared. But at the same time, obviously, they've been given enough information from law enforcement to believe that Prosser has definitely been cleared, and that it's only something that they need to do as a last resort because it's been so thoroughly covered already.
We are now on Prosser Creek Reservoir. This is, according to law enforcement, Kiely's last known location. So we're looking for a silver vehicle. Her Honda CR-V is silver in color. Helicopters have stated that they could see the bottom of this reservoir. We've had multiple different extreme levels of sonar utilized by different sonar teams in this reservoir. I'm confident in what they've done. However, and not to sound cocky, but if we haven't searched it, it hasn't been searched. That's our motto, so that we stay efficient and protect the integrity of everything we do as we're working for families and law enforcement.
Again, helicopters have told us they could see the bottom of this reservoir. That's significant. And they've had multiple extreme levels of sonar. He knows that the place has been thoroughly checked. There is a clip somewhere on one of my videos where I included a recording of someone discussing the use of a magnetic anomaly detection device on Prosser Reservoir mounted on a boat. Magnetic anomaly detection devices, also known as MADs, specifically are used to detect any sort of metal. They were originally designed way back in, I think it was World War II, to detect submarines. This is high-level technology. If there was a car in the reservoir when a boat went over with MAD technology, they would have found it. There's also, I think it was Washoe County, had that underwater ROV. There's actually some videos that you can find on YouTube which show the sort of clarity that you can get with a camera with one of those underwater ROVs. No matter how you look at it, the reservoir was thoroughly checked before Adventures with Purpose went in there.
We'll go by it a couple times. There's something creating a big shadow right there. So we're gonna go, it's right off this point. If they scanned it, how would they miss that? So I'm assuming it's nothing because they did have dive teams, but I don't want to be the guy that just says, oh, it's nothing because it doesn't look like a car.
So what Nick is saying here is that basically if they'd scanned, they could not have possibly missed it. So his presumption is that if they scanned, they must have checked out whatever it was and proven it to be nothing of significance, maybe a big rock or something, because they couldn't have possibly missed it when they were scanning.
Is that what you just saw?
Yeah. So it's just a big shadow there. You see that?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense though. It's only 10 feet of water. We definitely have something man-made. Big.
It's probably nothing, but it was a big shadow.
It's something.
Isn't that weird? I mean, it's just big.
It's definitely something. Directly under us right now. What is that, Carson? Is that a boat? Or is that an SUV? I believe it's a car.
Okay, obviously you need the right kind of sonar to pick up that sort of image, but to me that looks clear as day. And how many times did both Doug and Nick refer to it as being something big? How can you miss it?
Let's assess our situation. 18 different agencies. Over 19,000 man-hours have been put into this. Not a zero vehicle was found in this reservoir. It looks just like a car. It looks just like an SUV. And it looks like it's giving me some misreadings the way a newer car would.
And the windows are closed, probably?
All of the windows except for one. Yes.
One's halfway down.
Which one?
One's all the way down.
So Nick is my diver.
Which window's up or down?
The, what was it?
Driver rear.
Driver rear was down and the passenger rear was halfway.
Is she seatbelted in?
No.
Is she in the driver's seat?
No.
She's not.
No.
She's
Is she in the back?
She's in the back.
Yes.
Note the question, and the windows were closed, probably. They were expecting that she was trapped in that car and couldn't get out. They also asked about her being strapped in, wearing her seatbelt, and were surprised at her being right in the back of the vehicle. I think both her pap and her dad saw the red flags here immediately. I just find their questions interesting. And I know that Shan's discussed this multiple times, so I'm not going to go into it any further here. But just think about the way they asked these questions. What were they thinking at the time when they had this discussion with Doug?
Right there is the red thing?
Yes, sir.
How in the could they have missed it?
That's impossible.
And in our investigation coming into this, this is just what we do. We find vehicles underwater. We specialize in it.
Thank you.
I don't know what you guys know, and we don't always know the why. We just try to find the where.
How the fuck could they have missed it? That says it all, doesn't it? Did you note also that Doug said to them, "I don't know how much you know," which to me says that he's testing them out to find out how much they know in terms of the investigation. He said this straight after the "how the fuck did they miss it?" Doug knows something here, definitely. I am 100% convinced that Doug had enough knowledge before they found Kiely to know, once they found her car in Prosser Reservoir, that it was definitely foul play.
I'm a firm believer in second chances. However, some things don't deserve forgiveness. Maliciousness does not deserve forgiveness. Cold-blooded, cold-heartedness, taking the life of a 16-year-old deserves zero forgiveness.
I really don't need to add anything at all to what Doug has just said here, but I'm going to play it again, because to me this is one of those super, super crucial, super important things that we need to keep in mind.
I'm a firm believer in second chances. However, some things don't deserve forgiveness. Maliciousness does not deserve forgiveness. Cold-blooded, cold-heartedness, taking the life of a 16-year-old deserves zero forgiveness. I mean, let's just start at the beginning. We're talking about a 16-year-old that just graduated, highly intelligent, possibly on her way to med school, disappears from a party of upwards of 400 children and ends up being found, several hundred yards away. That in itself is completely alarming, and nobody saw anything. Take into consideration the area where her vehicle was found is not a wrong turn road. We're talking about a very beautifully paved road that leads in and out of this campground that she was extremely familiar with. And where her vehicle ended up was on a very hard, sharp left turn onto a dirt road that is rough. It is extremely rough. The ruts in this road, I mean, it literally takes you have to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get down this road. There's no mistaking it. Once you are put onto this road, you know exactly where you're at. You're on the wrong path. So the fact that the vehicle ended up where it is, completely suspicious. There's a lot of ifs in regards to where she was located within the vehicle being suspicious as well, which I find suspicious. The whole thing just doesn't add up. There's a 16-year-old just doesn't disappear with that many people around and nobody knowing anything and no one willing to talk. It's a huge red flag.
A huge shout out and thank you to Doug Bishop for the things that he did come forward and say early on in the piece. Okay, really important. It is not a wrong turn road. He said it's such a rough road that you would know that you're on the wrong road straight away because of how rough it is. I recommend having a look at the videos that CCTV made. You can see, and that's in a Jeep, you can see what it was like driving that road. It was not an easy road to drive. It was bumpy. It's not the sort of road that you're going to accidentally go down and accidentally end up driving in the water. He points out how intelligent Kiely was. And I think that's a valid point. She was super, super intelligent. She would have known if she had ended up on the wrong road. We know from the autopsy, well, we think we know from the autopsy that there was no alcohol in her system, or almost no alcohol in her system. Depends on decomposition rates. But she was far too smart to drive herself into a reservoir in the middle of the night like that. He also makes that crucial point. Nobody saw anything, apparently. And why are people so adamant about not coming forward? If it was just an accident, people would speak.
If you want to take into consideration that she did text her mom that she didn't misspell anything, she texted very legibly, so and then she disappears right after. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily fall in line with somebody who's inebriated enough to make such a drastic, devastating wrong turn and end up in a reservoir.
Either way you look at it, either Kiely didn't do the text herself, which then would mean she would be incapable of driving and ending up in the reservoir, or if she did do that text, then she surely wouldn't have been at the point of being so intoxicated to drive herself in the reservoir. And of course, this is assuming that her car somehow was in the reservoir from the very beginning and was missed by countless people.
This is basically a small SUV.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible to crawl back. Are you going to crawl back there and not choose the window that's open or the window that's halfway open already? That doesn't seem logical to happen in that scenario.
Especially, and now let's not forget this, both possible window exits were bigger spaces than the gap between the seats and the ceiling in the SUV. Why would you try and squeeze through that smaller gap into the back of the SUV when there were windows open? And yeah, people are going to say, well, maybe it's because the vehicle was sinking so quickly because of the windows being open. But you have a front window on one side completely open or smashed out, and then in the back you have a window that was half open. Think about how the water's going to go in. Yes, it would have seeped in through the doors a bit first, but once the car got down to the level where it was going to start going in the windows, it was going to go into that open front window first, which means that corner of the car was going to dive down first. You're going to head, or this is what everyone says, you head for the highest point. You head away from the water pouring in. So even if she couldn't get out because the water was pouring in that window so much, she's going to be heading away from it. And guess what's away from it? The other open window. Why would you not go through there? There would have been no water pouring in through that open window at that point because the car would have been tilting at the angle where the water was going in with the front window. It honestly makes no sense. The most logical thing is that as the car began to fill up from the window at the front, that the most immediate access point for someone inside that vehicle, if they were actually alive or conscious, would be straight up and out through that back window, not into the hatch. And sure, it was dark. People are like, well, it gets really dark there at night. But this was sometime, supposedly, according to the narrative, after 12:30 at night, in which case the moon was up. So it wouldn't have been pitch black. There would have been moonlight enough for someone to see that back window was there. If she was driving, she would have known that big back window was open anyway. So she would have gone for it. That's my thoughts. So, did Kiely accidentally drive herself into Prosser Reservoir on the night of the party? If so, why did nobody find her car until Adventures with Purpose went in there? And why didn't she get herself out through those open windows? Why did she take a wrong turn road that she would have known was the wrong road because it was so rough, and drive herself directly into a reservoir? Let's not forget also all those images we've seen of cars stuck in the mud. How did she manage to get through the mud and deep enough into the reservoir for her car to sink? You'd have to be going pretty bloody fast to do that, in which case there would have been an impact and airbags would have deployed. I've been told that if you drive into water, it is a heavy impact. You do that at speed, then of course the airbags are going to deploy. To me, there's just far, far, far too many things that point to the fact that Kiely did not drive herself into the reservoir, and that her car was definitely not in the reservoir from the very beginning.
Keep it together, look in the mirror, tell myself